Okay, folks, I think we'll get going. There's quite a few people online there now, so anyone else can just join. Delighted to have you all with us here. Just before we kick off, can I ask everyone maybe just to keep their cameras off, maybe just put mute on as well, just as we work through the webinar, and then we'll have time for Q&A towards the end. And if I can ask everyone who has a question to drop it into the chat room, and we'll come to it as well. So folks, good afternoon and welcome everyone to what is our first webinar of 2025. This is the next installment of a series of CSRD webinars that we've been hosting in the run-up to the legislation kicking in. So today we're just going to briefly set the scene a little bit. We're going to outline some of those key dates, some of those deadlines that we all need to be aware of with regard to CSRD. But today I am delighted to be joined by Elliot Group, who are one of our customers who are on their CSRD journey. So delighted Elliot are with us today to talk us through their journey so far. And I think, folks, we're at that stage of this CSRD journey where we actually need to hear from those businesses that are going through the process, so that we can all learn ultimately in terms of best practice and all of that. So really looking forward to getting into that shortly with Elliot Group as well. Okay. So just a wee reminder, folks, and just to get into introductions here. My name is Liam McEvoy, and I'm one of the co-founders of SustainIQ. And SustainIQ is an ESG software solution. We make it easy for our customers to capture all of their data across their organizations and report on their performance. And typically, our customers are reporting on GRI, CDP, and more recently, CSRD across the EU as well. So look, we'll come back to SustainIQ towards the end of today's webinar. But right now, I am delighted to introduce you all to Laura McEvoy. Laura is the Group Environmental and Quality Manager over at Elliot Group. So Laura, thank you for joining us today. Delighted to have you with us. Laura, if you don't mind, just maybe giving everyone a brief introduction into your role at Elliot Group, just very quickly, please.
Yeah, I'm, as I mentioned, the Group Environmental and Quality Manager here at Elliot Group. I started with the company just almost 4 years ago in HSEQ. Very quickly recognised that ESG was coming thick and fast, so the role was developed then to incorporate that, and now it's mostly focused on ESG.
Perfect timing with CSRD coming.
Yeah.
Laura, so it all worked out well. No, listen, brilliant. I'm really looking forward to having a wee chat shortly around Elliot Group's approach to CSRD as well. So just guys, to do a bit of a recap, CSRD is now here. I feel like we've been talking about it for a lifetime, but it has finally landed. So the first report's due in 2025, January 2025, based on 2024 performance. However, the vast majority of our customers, and I think Laura, Elliot Group probably fall into this category as well, will be impacted in 2026, reporting on their 2025 performance. So just again, a wee bit of a recap for those of you joining us, maybe new to the CSRD conversation, although at this stage I don't know how you could have missed it. In April 2021, the European Commission adopted the CSRD directive, and it replaced the NFRD. So CSRD now expands the scope of sustainability reporting, with over 50,000 organizations now facing mandatory sustainability reporting, and that's up from 11,000. So that's a massive impact on business right across the EU. Doesn't impact everyone straight away. It's going to be phased in. There is a criteria which you need to check to see whether or not your business is immediately impacted by it, but it is important to check that out just to understand what the compliance requirements might be for your business. Just because we've got so many on the webinar today joining us from across the UK, we just wanted to highlight, I think there's a bit of a myth where some businesses maybe think they're in the UK and they're not impacted by CSRD, and that's just not the case. If you're a UK business, you will have to comply with CSRD if you've got EU-based subsidiaries. Even if only one subsidiary and all of the others are outside the EU, you must still comply and disclose. If you've got securities on EU-regulated markets or over 150 million euro turnover in the EU. However, that's the legislative part of it. So even though you're outside of the EU, if you meet that criteria, chances are you will still have to report in order to comply. But even if the legislation doesn't impact you, if you are working with large EU corporations, you've got that EU presence, you'll likely face pressure from them and those companies to disclose your ESG performance around the procurement decisions. But even if you're just part of that wider supply chain, chances are that particular company will need access to that data from you so that they can comply. So even if not impacted initially by the legislation, chances are commercially you will be, especially if you want to remain part of those big supply chains as well. So yeah, just to be aware of that, if you're UK based or US based or dialing in from someplace else, just because you're outside of the EU, it doesn't mean you're not impacted. So just again, a bit of a recap there. For those 50-odd thousand organizations, it will now be required to disclose and audit their ESG performance. So you'll have to comply if you have a net turnover of over 40 million or more, you have at least 20 million in assets, at least 250 plus employees, or a listed business, including listed SMEs. So if you meet that criteria, CSRD is going to impact your business in terms of compliance and reporting. So just in terms of some of those key dates, as I say, it's finally here, reporting starting in 2025 based on 2024 performance. However, the main bulk of our customer base are impacted next year. So they'll be reporting in 2026 based on 2025 performance. But that means today, here and now, they're tracking all of their performance, they're capturing all of their data from the start of 2025 so that they can produce those reports in 2026 to comply with CSRD. So even though the reporting piece isn't until next year, the data capture piece has already started and is ongoing right now. So it's very much live, it's very much here, and it's just to be aware of all of that. So yeah, check out the criteria. Again, just make sure if you are impacted, you're aware of that, and then also what that means in terms of what stage you and your business will have to report at. So, and I think we're all pretty up to speed with those dates and those deadlines as well. So there's just a poll popping up on screen now. I would ask you all to take part. We're just asking those of you joining us today, have you now started your CSRD journey? And we'll get the results of that towards the end of the webinar. So Laura, we're going to come back to you and back to Elliot Group. Again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I mean it, Laura. I think we're at that stage now where, you know, we need to hear from businesses like yourselves that, you know, are going through the process, so we can all understand what actual impact it's had on the business. And the pros and the cons and the lessons learned and all of that. So look, I think it's brilliant that Elliot Group are sharing their experience with everyone. I think we need more of that, to be honest, particularly across this sector as well, because it's really going to benefit everyone. So thank you for coming on today.
Well,
Laura, can I start, right? So we're going to talk CSRD, but before we get to CSRD, just being familiar with Elliot Group, like, you know, big company and some of the big projects that you guys are involved in across Ireland, across the UK as well. I feel like you guys have been on the ESG journey for a while, if I'm honest. And if you don't mind, could you share with us a little bit of that journey? Like, when did this all start for you guys? And I suppose, like, the big question too is, how did you get everyone on board? Because, like, that's a big challenge for businesses to get, like, the board, to get, you know, the colleagues, get everyone on the same page so that everyone sees and understands the value that the ESG can potentially bring to the business?
Yeah, well, you're right. We have been on this journey for almost 3 years now. And really, it all started when we heard of the ESG Summit in Croke Park.
Yes.
And myself and our HSEQ director went along to see what all this was about. And it became very quickly became apparent that it was coming. I think Matthew heard someone say that ESG is what health and safety was 10 years ago, but we don't have 10 years to get to where we need to be. And that really resonated with us. Then we heard John Curran from Blue Planet speak, and he seemed very matter of fact, and there was no fuss. There were a lot of acronyms being bounced about the place that I'm sure we're all familiar with now, but our heads were spinning, and we just realized that we need to get someone to help us. And we approached John, and he came on as a consultant for us, which was a massive help.
Brilliant, because Laura, you're right, like it is overwhelming whenever, you know, whenever you just drop that off my screen. Whenever you start to look at ESG, it's vast, and the amount of data that a company like Elliot Group now need to start recording, start capturing, start reporting, it's vast, you know. And I do think it can be overwhelming for people. So I suppose, like, how did you get your head around that? I'm thinking, being familiar with you guys as well, particularly from the environmental piece as well, which is probably where I'd be more familiar. You were already doing a lot of it, you know. You are that sort of company, you know. You had
well, with the social and the governance, all of the three of the pillars, we were doing a lot, but we were actually doing more than we realized.
Yes.
It wasn't until that we did a baseline survey based on 2021 data. Thankfully, we didn't close at all during COVID, so we had the data there to go on. That was a massive piece of work, a huge undertaking, but very worthwhile, because then we were able to compare it actually with 2024 data, and our carbon footprint has reduced. It's all going the right way. But I think the fact that we were recording everything we were doing in 2024 helped a lot. It was hard to get some of the data that we needed for the baseline. But then the likes of our environmental, or just our waste, our water usage, our fuel usage, all that is actively being recorded, and has sort of we slowly got everybody on board. We didn't want to bombard everybody. We didn't want them to think, oh, here's another new fad that we're going to have to add work to. But actually, we find that it's reduced some of the work, because everything's centralized. We're able to pull reports to show an individual site or a full site, or both here and our UK side of the business. So it was good to be able to get that comparison and be able to show then the board of directors what we are doing, and you know how well we are actually doing, and then be able to set our KPIs from where we're at for the next 3 years.
I mean, to see that sort of value so quickly is exactly what you need to sort of get that buy-in as well. I mean, you know, even in terms of some of the project teams and stuff, and I'm thinking even back before the CSRD sort of started to really sort of come to the fore, like, how was it trying to get that sort of buy-in even from the project teams around, you know, the whole ESG piece, you know? And I know it's a journey. I know it. I think that's a brilliant analogy actually with health and safety. Like, I would even say 20 years ago, like 20 years ago, it was painful, absolutely painful trying to get, you know, even I'm thinking the supply chain, you know, on board with health and safety. And now we're starting that whole journey again with ESG, and it's equally as painful, and it's going to be as difficult. But I think 5-6 years from now, I think we'll be getting ESG data same way we get health and safety today. But we're at the start of that journey. I think we have to recognize that, and that there is going to be pain points because it's just new for so many. But in terms of like training, I'm thinking like training and development, maybe even new roles within the organization, those types of investments around ESG. Did you guys get involved in any of that early doors?
Yeah, well, thankfully, SustainIQ were very good there. Now we got a lot of training. I think everybody in the company at some stage has been on a call with one of your guys. Get the site teams on board. It wasn't overly difficult. It was more just letting them know that we are, oh, sorry, my light's gone off.
That's
We
right.
are doing the work
That's your carbon
already.
reduction initiatives kicking in there.
Yeah, that's it. That's the sensors, you see. We are already doing the work, but we just needed to record it.
Yes.
So,
yes. Well, I would always say, like, you know, from an Elliot Group perspective, like, you guys, you don't work for who you work for and do what you do in the projects that you do without having a lot of that information. So yes, I'm not surprised you found that actually the data, or the data was there in some form or other. But I think what we're seeing across a lot of businesses is it's kind of detached, or it's siloed, or it was
yeah,
used
it's
for this.
scattered all in
Scattered.
different
Yes.
places. Like even just recording toolbox talks, that's
Yes.
training and development.
Yes. Yes.
And albeit 15 minutes once a week, it doesn't belong adding up.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then going against that pillar. So, you know, it's recognizing what you're doing and then recording it properly.
Yeah, brilliant. No, but it's also the buy-in, it's also the investment. And I think having those foundations in place, like 2-3 years ago, I think just as CSRD started to really come to the fore, having those foundations in place just meant that you could probably progress things a wee bit faster, because you'd already covered a lot of ground potentially. Just in terms of the CSRD stuff, Laura, you were saying you became aware of it at that ESG summit, which I think the ESG summits in Dublin are brilliant. I think that's, you know, in terms of, you know, informing business what's coming down the road, I think they've played a critical role actually in all of this. Can I ask, Laura, in terms of CSRD, am I right in saying you guys are impacted next year, 26 reporting on 25 performance?
Yeah, so we'll be reporting January 26th on this year's data.
And so you're actively tracking your data today, you're actively recording this across the projects.
Yeah, well, we've incorporated it into, like, the likes of our water usage, we've incorporated that into our HSEQ audits.
Brilliant.
All our sites have water meters. So
Brilliant.
as one of the questions on the audit now is, what's the reading? Just go back and add that to the site, then to their own site on SustainIQ. Again, in the click of a button, we can get a report of the full usage for that site or the company or whatever we need. So at least fortnightly that's going up. If I'm on site, I'll get a quick snap of it and put it up myself. Every time there's a fuel delivery, like going through the process that our site admins go through, they just add another step now and they upload the delivery amount and a copy of the docket to SustainIQ. So we're able to track that. So the information was always there, and it was just, as I said, scattered in different places. So it's just making sure everyone's recording in the right place now.
Bringing it all together into one place. No, look, and again, you know, we're talking CSRD, but obviously, you know, we need the data now for tenders, for all sorts. But see the CSRD, Laura, then. So you sort of mentioned becoming aware of it at the ESG summit, and then learning a little bit more about it. So then you brought John from Blue Planet in. So that's so was John kind of, I kind of see the benefit there. So he kind of was able to sort of open your eyes to the potential impact this was going to have on the business.
Yeah, he was, and it was quite a softly approach from John. Like, we were doing stuff without even realizing that we were doing it. Like,
that's a sign of a good consultant, Laura.
He was very good now.
Brilliant.
Like, stage 1 very quickly gave us answers that we needed for stage 2, 3 and 4, you know, it all rolled into one another. Even developing our ESG strategy, getting feedback from our stakeholders and that, so it was all
brilliant. Just sort of
pretty organic.
Setting that all out. That's I think that's brilliant. And in terms of, I suppose, again, back to that sort of buy-in, like when did you start the CSRD journey, like properly, sort of the legislation piece? When would that really have kicked in for the business?
Probably, I'd say about 1.5 years ago, because we started going through our policies, making sure that we had the right policies in place. If we didn't, writing them and getting them approved at board level, and then getting them rolled out to staff and subcontractors alike. So it started there, and then we sort of moved into stakeholder engagement, finding out what their view was of it, what their view was of us,
Yeah.
how they thought we were impacting and how things were going to impact us, and just
That's perfect. So you've been at it so the ESG piece probably, well, before ESG, I suppose you've been at the whole waste management, the energy thing anyway across the projects. ESG became a thing, I suppose, and you started that maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And then CSRD really kicked in then about a year and a half ago. So you've been at it. But that's brilliant. So you had that preparation time built in to properly take maybe a softer approach to it, which is perfect for getting buy-in and bringing everyone with you, because you need to be able to bring the whole company with you on this. Otherwise,
exactly. It wasn't just everything at once. We were able to drip feed it and get the information that we needed. And
you're and listen, you mentioned the baseline. So was that a painful process at all?
Yes.
Because that was 21. That was quite early for people talking.
Well, we did the baseline survey about 2.5 years ago, but based on 2021 data. It was a long process. There was a lot of information, and trying to find mileage of cars from 2021, who even had a car in 2021, all that. That was a long process, but we got the responses from everyone in the company that we needed to get.
Good.
We were able to build the report then,
And it was something brand new that had never been done before, and it was always going to be painful. But I think it shocks people when you start to break down emissions, even your scope 1, your scope 2, and then you look at scope 3. The emissions piece, it's coming from everywhere. And again, some of the data is maybe in an accounts department, a finance team, it's on an invoice, maybe some of it's on a vehicle tracker, or it's it's on a delivery docket for diesel coming to site for a Bowser. It's incredible when you actually just start to look at one piece, and that would just be your greenhouse gas emissions. The amount of work involved in just data scoping and understanding where everything lives, and then getting it all pulled together in a way so that you get your baseline, but then knowing that you're going to have to do this again, and putting the process in place to make sure that next time around it's not going to be as painful. People are going to know what's expected and all of that. So no, fair dues for getting it done back in 21. And you were saying then obviously the company kept operating throughout COVID, so the 21 is reflective of business operation. Perfect. Listen, you mentioned the stakeholder engagement piece, Laura, and I'm very interested in that. Like, did that, so even in terms of the different stakeholders, like, did it throw anything up in terms of feedback? Was there any shockers, or was it all sort of as expected, really?
It was all as not all as expected, but the majority of it was. Just we felt we needed to involve the stakeholders, because there was no point in us writing an ESG strategy and nobody thinking any worth of it. We wanted to get their input to make sure we were meeting our clients' needs and that as well. So the interviews were very good. We had 4 main questions that we asked them, and the feedback was all much of a muchness. A lot of climate change, biodiversity, quality came up a good bit, and governance. So there was nothing that really threw us. So we were on the right track. Good.
And that sort of give you, I suppose, those common trends coming through as well. It's really, like, it is when you think about it, like that engagement piece, that in itself is so valuable to get that kind of feedback from stakeholders. Like, was it a lengthy process? Did it take a bit of time? Would you advise people to kind of prepare in advance for it? Like, what was the process like?
Well, deciding firstly who we were going to interview. So we wanted to make sure we had like people from our own board, we had clients, subcontractors and suppliers. We had at least 1, maybe 2, 3 from each of those categories. And then it was trying to set up meetings to make sure we could get them available, and the amount of times that they were changed or they couldn't make it and they rescheduled. So that was probably the most difficult. People was getting them on the screen in front of you, but everyone was very nervous going into the interviews. Anyone I was talking to before, we're like, oh, sure, I don't know anything about ESG or whatever, but
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly what we wanted. We wanted to know where they were, what they understood, and how they sort of seen it developing in the future, which then we
Yeah.
sort of tailored our ESG strategy towards
Brilliant.
the feedback. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, but honestly, and but I think there as well, it takes like that all takes time. So I think people even maybe listening to us today, you know, that maybe haven't started their journey. I think it's just important even to realize that you need to build time into all of this, because like, you know, it just doesn't happen, as you say, by the time you kind of set it all up and everything.
Yeah.
It's again, it's back to, I suppose, you guys having the foresight to get ahead of yourselves and start the process early, because you knew it was going to take time. So and it actually, you know, as you talk through all of this, like it all just sounds like it's been, you know, a really valuable sort of process. Like, you know, yes, compliance with CSRD is a must, but actually from a business perspective,
Yeah.
you're getting so much out of it. Um, or see, talk me through the double material. See, before we get into DMA, actually, maybe going to throw another poll up. Be interested to know how many on the call today have completed, so not started, but completed the DMA process. I think it's interesting. I think there's an element of it. It honestly, it just depends who you're talking to, but there's an element of not quite fear, but um, sort of concern around what the DMA is going to throw up, you know, and people are just a wee bit kind of worried about getting into it and what it's going to. So from your perspective, have you guys done the DMA? Is it completed?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good that that's all done and dusted. Talk, talk me through that. Because again, Laura, you're talking about stuff that's never been done. But this is all new. You know, businesses are taking their first go at this, their first stab at something they've never really had to do before. And, you know, having come through that process, like, and as early as well as you have come through it as well, you're in a really good position. So how did you find that double materiality assessment? And again, was it in conjunction with John at Blue Planet as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So John very cleverly got us to do it without us knowing.
Yeah.
Again, we actually worked in the questions for DMA in the stakeholder engagement. We asked our stakeholders what sort of impacts in and impacts out from Elliot Group,
Yeah.
and their answers sort of helped us gauge our high and low impact and risks for our DMA, and then we got 28 data points that we have to report on now. So
Brilliant.
yeah.
And 28 additional. Great.
Yeah.
So I suppose then, like what you're saying there, like that's from the stakeholder engagement through into the DMA, the way that's kind of been managed for you guys, it sounds like a bit
Yeah.
like more of an organic sort of.
Very, that would be the word I would use. Yeah, it was a
That's
pretty, yeah, it just
incredible.
happened organically.
Yeah, yeah,
Whenever I first thought of DNA, I was like, I don't know what products we use. I thought it was
yeah,
to do with materials.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so it
Totally.
wasn't until I actually got a bit educated on the topic that I understood what it was really about. But again, Blue Planet helped us a
Yeah,
lot
no,
with
but
that.
listen, I think you're wise to bring in that expertise, because
Yeah,
again, the first time, like you've all done it, with any of us have sort of done it. So it's a learning experience for everyone. And Laura, there'll be folks on the webinar today listening to you who won't have got to this stage of the journey yet.
yeah,
And I'm just hearing you say almost like trust the process, um, and maybe bring in the expertise, yes, but
yeah.
trust that process and work through it. And actually it kind of flows automatically, kind of flows through, which is exactly what's supposed to happen. But we're always told this is supposed to happen on paper, so you're never quite sure in reality if that is the case. So it's brilliant in Elliot Group's case to hear that is actually the way it sort of happened. And from the DMA, like I suppose again, you guys going into it before you started it, had you any expectations around it? Did it throw anything up again, or were you sort of, yeah, kind of just sort of, I suppose I'm thinking around the ESRS standards and alignment with those.
Mhm.
pretty much as expected, like you were saying,
Yeah,
climate change.
it was as expected, just the big topics for climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, then the ethical and slavery, bribery, corruption, that sort of is there up in our high risk, high
Yeah,
everything there. So, but again, similar to the feedback from the stakeholder engagement, so it all
yeah,
tied in
yeah.
nicely. Yeah.
Brilliant. And you've got that alignment now with those ESRS topics
Yeah.
going forward. Brilliant. Fantastic. So that's all set out. I think it's a great framework. And I think then for you to have come through that process, completed the DMA, and now you have those aligned with the ESRS
Yeah.
framework is brilliant. So it just puts that structure, that reporting structure now in place. So that then feeds back into data capture, what it is you're focusing in on and what it is you're going to be reporting on. Honestly, I think it's great to get that feedback because I think there is a wee bit of a concern around the DMA process. And to hear it kind of organically happens from that stakeholder engagement piece, I think is going to be really useful for a lot of people to kind of get that feedback, which is really good. So I suppose like moving through that, then you've aligned with the ESRS framework, and so you know come next year basically now what it is you guys are going to be reporting on and what that report structure are going to start to look like. So the focus then at the minute then is on data capture. You've already touched on this, Laura, so you've already embedded a lot of this in. So you mentioned there about like embedding it within ISO 14001, and so you've kind of rolled that out, is it, across the business, the reporting to place? Brilliant.
Yeah, well, that's every site has their SustainIQ.
Yeah,
All our
brilliant.
sites have site administrators, and it's part of their daily duties now to upload any information, the likes of the days of delivery, the water, toolbox talks, site visits, all that kind of
Fantastic.
information just gets put straight up on SustainIQ. Yeah.
And that's great, and it's all centralized.
Yeah.
And then you're able to benchmark against projects, of course, as well. No, brilliant. So
Yeah.
I think it's that. I think it's been able to build. So you've done that stakeholder piece, you've done the DMA piece, you've aligned with the ESRS framework, and you now know what it is you're going to be reporting on. So being able to like build all those data capture points embed it within your existing management system. So you're, I suppose, updating. I know working with us, for example, you did embed a lot of our workflows within your existing site procedures. Brilliant, because it just started to make it part of the management system process, which is good. And then also that is covered within your audit process as well going forward, which is really, really good. But that's how you are now getting access to that accurate, reliable data for reporting. So again, the value piece there, I think, is huge. Yes, a lot of this stuff can be painful, but actually you guys are already starting to see the benefit of that. So Laura, I can't believe we're sitting there, right? We're nearly need to start wrapping up. What's next, right? So I can't believe you're as far down the road as you actually are, which is brilliant. So what's the next big thing for Elliot Group this year? Because obviously the reporting, the data capture stuff's all in place. You're pulling all the data in, you're centralizing it. You know what it is you're going to be reporting on next year. So what's the next big thing this year for you guys?
Next is focusing more on our subcontractors and our suppliers.
Okay, yeah.
So I have questionnaires gone out. We're sort of doing on a site by site basis to both suppliers and subbies, just to get an understanding of how well informed they are, like how well informed our supply chain are, and then what steps they're maybe taking to reduce their scope 1 and 2, because ultimately their scope 1 and 2 is our scope 3. So if they're reducing that, it's going to have a positive impact on us. And then just seeing who has what certification, ISOs and all that. So it's really just to gain a better understanding of where our supply chain are at. And we've had some very good feedback so far from the questionnaire, which is great. I was sort of thinking nobody was going to answer it, but we've got a good few responses back.
Well, it sounds like, yes, you're kind of doing that engagement piece, which is brilliant. And again, it's early and it's brilliant that you're out there doing that. And I think get the ball rolling, because I think we're not that far away from, like, this is going to form part of Elliot Group supply chain pre-qualification approval, whatever you
Yeah.
guys want to call it, but to be basically part of your approved supply chain, they're going to have to be providing you at some point in the future with a lot of this
Yeah.
data to enable your reporting. So I think you're doing it right. I think by starting
Yeah.
to get the feedback
I
in
think
terms of, yeah,
even a lot of the subcontractors probably hadn't really considered it at all, but the simple fact of getting a questionnaire from us about it
yeah.
is maybe making them think about it now, which is only going to be a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think you're giving them time. I think, look, you're letting them know this is the direction of travel. You know, at some point in the future, we will be needing this information from you, same as
Yeah.
health and safety. So they're getting that window of opportunity to go away, figure out for themselves how they're going to get access to that data within their own businesses, so that whenever that email comes in from Elliot Group, possibly the procurement teams requesting this
Yeah.
information, that that they're going to have it and they're going to be able to provide it. So I think that early engagement piece is critical, because I think there's so much work to be done with the supply chain still around education. And if I'm honest, I think, you know, the main contractors like you guys are kind of the critical piece there in terms of educating the supply chain, getting everyone on board so they know that this is the direction of travel. Laura, just to start to wrap things up a wee bit, you've come through this process, and look, to be fair, you've had the sense to start as early as you did, which was brilliant. But is there any advice today that you could give folks on the call, that's maybe just starting out, maybe haven't even started yet, but any advice, any lessons learned that you guys at Elliot Group could maybe share, that would help people today maybe getting started?
Yeah, well, I think starting as soon as possible is a big thing, because it sort of gives you a chance to do it at a leisurely pace instead of rushing at it. I
Yeah,
think definitely engage a consultant. We wouldn't have got where we are now without the help of John. And then just getting the buy-in from senior management. It has to be top down. It can't be someone beating a solo drum. It has to have full board buy-in, which we very luckily have here at Elliot Group. They're all very invested in it. They've made huge investments within the company itself, even the installation of PV panels and the purchase of electric cars and all that. So they have
brilliant.
invested substantially in
So
ESG. So
So you guys have made those big carbon reduction
yeah,
investments already. Brilliant. So renewables there and the EVs. So even from a net zero perspective,
yeah,
you know, that those investments have already been made. Brilliant, brilliant.
yeah.
That's
Our head office is, there's a huge bank of PV panels at the back in the car park of the head office, and we've already seen payback from that. Even just of one, they were put in about 16 months ago, so we've had at least one full year of running them, and
yeah,
we're starting to see our investment coming back already, which is
brilliant.
brilliant.
But
And
yeah,
that's
that
really all the board needed to see.
but that's it. And then it makes your life easier going back to them next time,
Yeah.
because they've seen the benefit, they've seen the business benefit, they've seen the value, and
Hmm.
it almost kind of helps build that business case going forward,
Yeah.
and rolling stuff out on the projects and all of the net zero initiatives that are going to have to take place there over the coming years as well. So no, fair dues. I think it's great that even those carbon reduction initiatives, as we all sort of, you know, move towards net zero, it's brilliant that those have already started. Plus, you've seen the benefits, and the
Yeah.
return of those as well, which is incredible. Can I ask, Laura, a couple of wee things? Do you think, in terms of a top tip, would you recommend that expertise, that consultancy piece? Do you think that has you would recommend
Yeah.
that to people? Yeah, to consider.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also if it is possible within the organization to make it a standalone role, because
yeah,
it is very difficult to do it alongside
yeah,
another role. I know we had the time, so it was possible, but time's very quickly running out.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it needs to be standalone, because it takes a lot of time, a
yeah.
lot of energy.
Yeah, no, look, and I think it is. I think especially for the first time, just to get
Yeah,
head around all of it. No, it makes sense. And listen, I'm obviously going to be slightly biased asking this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And I don't necessarily mean SustainIQ, by the way, but I just mean in terms of the data that is not like you guys are a big company, right? So there's a lot of data there. But even in terms of any business there that's pulling all of this data together for reporting, could you imagine doing that on a spreadsheet, or do you think a digital solution is the only way to go? Like,
You couldn't do it on a spreadsheet.
yeah, no, I don't think so either.
You couldn't. Plus, the information has to be tagged. It has to be
That's right.
transferred digitally. So I can't imagine CSRD are going to accept an Excel
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I think
Yeah,
even just the management of it, um, and critiquing it and all of
yeah.
it, I think like definitely going forward, it's going to be a big piece for most businesses. But
I think the benefit as well of, like, I know it's not a sales pitch, but for SustainIQ, it's the visuals that we're able to produce. The graphs are automatically sort of produced in the reporting dashboard. So it's easy for us to set a pie chart down and say this instead of a whole load of numbers. So
getting
it's,
get
yeah,
get
the graphics and everything that come along with it are very good.
getting the information you need when you need it quickly, sort
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah, no, look, absolutely. Laura, I've just realized the time. We're supposed to finish in a minute, right?
yeah.
So I just look, thank you so much for that. Before we wrap things up, I just want to have a quick look to see here. Have we got any questions in the chat? Let's see. 2 seconds. Chat function here. There we go. Okay. Just have a quick scan through these. So someone's asked, can you advise where exactly will we be reporting our corporate sustainability reports, and can you send the link to where we will be reporting? So that's more, I suppose, 2026, Laura, submitting the report to the
Yeah.
commission. Are you maybe not sure yet in terms of where you actually physically send a report to?
Yeah, well, there's a portal that's going to be
Okay.
opened, I believe, that we can upload to.
Okay, and then someone has asked who will have access to those sustainability reports when they are submitted. So again, the commission obviously will have access. Just from my own knowledge as well, I know a lot of people are going to be making those reports
Public,
publicly
yeah.
available.
I think they'll be published on company websites as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
I think,
they have to be open and transparent. Yeah.
yeah, no, makes sense. And I think, like, it's kind of the new age of sustainability. I think reports in the last 10 years, they've been great in terms of showing what companies are doing. But I think this next sort of batch of reports based on the data-driven reporting, I just think it's going to be more fair, it's going to be more reflective, and I think it needs to be that way. So who will be auditing our corporate sustainability data, and when will we be notified of the audits? So I'll double check this and let everyone know in the feedback. So everyone attending today will get a lot of information out to you around this. I think that first year, the commission has give a little bit of leniency around the verification. So I think the first year is really just about the reporting piece. But it's only temporary. It's only like maybe the first year, and after that, they will have to be audited, third party audited and verified. But I'll follow up in the feedback probably tomorrow with that more information on that. So will the current government change climate legislation? Ms. Reeves said growth projects should not be held back because they might add something to carbon emissions in 20 years time. So it's all changed, I suppose, at the minute. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the answer to that one. Again, there's quite a few links I'll include in the feedback around that might give you a little bit of a steer in terms of what they're thinking going forward. But look, the 2050 target is there, and there's a big challenge ahead in order to meet it. So there will definitely have to be um amendments made in order to allow, and also to allow the investment that's required in order to allow businesses to transition as well. Is there a typical recommended DMA template or software available? Loris, maybe one back to you guys. I'm not aware of one, but again,
Not aware of a software, no. But it's just like a scatter diagram that we have that we sort of plotted in what we've seen as high risk, inside out and outside in, and
yeah.
that's
And
just how we went about it.
I'm just conscious of time, and so what we will do, we'll take all of these chats and we'll make sure we do follow up with every single one of these tomorrow. And if there's links available to any of that, we will absolutely include those links, so you can go and check it out. Is it possible to have a quick look at what some of the reporting on SustainIQ looks like? Absolutely. Please, hello@sustainiq.com. Reach out. We can jump on a quick call and let you see that. What evidence is required to be issued with the corporate? So the evidence is the data. You have to provide the data as well as the report. So the data will back up what's in the report. So it's almost like to eliminate greenwashing as well. You can't just put anything in the report. It needs to be backed up with the actual data there as well. Do you have an example of a recommended response format? So if that's like a template, yes, there are. Within the ESRS framework, they give a lot of sort of different templates in terms of what is expected, what they expect to see from the reports. There's a link there. We'll definitely include that as well. If you're subject to CSRD, it will be part of your annual report within the director's report. There you go, brilliant. Your statutory auditor will audit the sustainability statement as well. Perfect. And is the CSRD portal, is it available now? Again, Michael, we'll check that out and include all of those links in the follow-up tomorrow probably as well. Just in terms of feedback on those polls that everyone took part in as well, 2 wee seconds there. I always think they're interesting to get the feedback. Okay, the first one was, have you started your CSRD journey? So 51% of you said yes, 49% said no. And how many of you have completed the double materiality assessment? So 15% say yes, and 85% of you say no. So there is quite a few of you there just on that process, and hopefully listening to Laura today has settled any nerves around that, but and also maybe helped in terms of next steps and what it is you guys maybe need to do. But I think the one thing there, Laura, you've sort of emphasized two things that I'm going to take away is not to be afraid of it. And it is an organic process, and if you trust the process, it kind of works you through. But time is critical. You have to allow time in order to properly do it. So Laura, thank you so much for that. I think that's so helpful. I think we need to hear more of that. I think, you know, with Elliot Group coming forward today and sharing that piece in terms of your journey to date, I think it's so helpful for others out there that are just starting the journey. So look, thank you for that. Just to wrap up quickly, folks, again, a couple of folks in the questionnaire asked about SustainIQ. So again, we are software that we pull all the data together and make it easy then for you guys to report on things like and including CSRD. We have this 4-pillar methodology there. So across those 4 pillars, there's 250 data capture points in operation. So we've taken the pain out of what it is you need to report, and we've sort of set that out for you. And it's all aligned with the ESRS standards for CSRD compliance as well. Look, we're working with a lot of companies. We're very busy in the construction space in Ireland and the UK, working with a lot of companies there as well. So if any of you listening today would like to know more about SustainIQ, how it might be able to help, please reach out, book a demo, even just contact us on hello@sustainiq.com, and one of the team will be more than happy to jump on and talk you through how the system might be able to help. But listen, folks, thank you so much for joining us today. Laura, once again, thank you so much to you and Elliot for taking part. Really appreciate it. I hope you all find today's session useful. As I said, we will be following up tomorrow to all of the attendees today, and we'll make sure we'll close out any of those questions that were asked in the chat as well, and we'll probably share a recording of the session as well. So thank you folks so much, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks, Liam.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you.